Hello, I'm Jim Teicher, and I'm pleased to be with you at the Insafe conference and to speak about communicating between the generations, specifically about protecting identity and data. By means of background, I originally come from the information security and financial services fields, very security conscious businesses. I co-founded CyberSmart Education 10 years ago with the objective to make learning more engaging and meaningful through the use of technology. CyberSmart originally partnered with the publisher McGraw-Hill Education and built an extremely popular online safety and security curriculum that has impacted millions of students for over a decade. And we've also provided online courses for teachers in the area of 21st century skills, and we engage in other 21st century learning initiatives in the Middle East and in Africa. Today, I'd like to share with you my observations on how the evolving use of the internet should impact how we address the topics of identity theft and data protection, and what this means in terms of your work as cyber safety and security professionals and educators. I'll be addressing three questions. First, how and why is communications between the generations on the topics of identity theft and data protection changing? Second, what are some of the latest technology changes in the areas of identity theft and data security that will impact the conversation? And third, how can educational materials be optimized in terms of their effectiveness? So, how and why is communications between the generations on the topics of identity theft and data protection changing? To answer this question, let's have a look at the changing nature of communications between the generations and start by going back several years. This data, along with much of the data I'll be using, comes from the Pew Internet in American Life Project, a nonprofit organization that is not funded by industry. Although the data is entirely from an American context, we do live in a globalized world, and I believe that the trends here are reflective of general trends. What's most remarkable about this chart is that today, just 8 years after this survey, it is unlikely that such a question would be asked. Now, most adults cannot imagine their lives or the lives of their children without the internet. And parents were actually more skeptical of the benefits of the internet in 2006 than 2004. I think this is because they were experiencing their own growing pains as their kids traveled into the new place called cyberspace. And the parents anxiously watched or tiptoed behind. Let's look a bit more behind adult use of the internet to explore this. In 2006, the Pew organization reported that about half the parents of teens went online daily. But we see here that those adults going online daily were doing so in conjunction with their work. Those not going online for their work, the other half, well, they went online much less frequently, weekly, every few weeks, or less often. In other words, they used the internet, but it wasn't an essential part of their lives. But of course, by this time, it was a huge part of their children's lives. This chart shows the trends over a 6-year period as adults flocked to the internet. In 2006, adults were not yet immersed in the internet. There were fewer devices to connect. There weren't any ebook readers or tablet computers. Laptop use was just getting started, and there were virtually no smartphones. In fact, smartphone use didn't even make it onto the chart. By the way, the iPhone was first put on sale June 29, 2007. And when I talk of adults with this data, by the way, they aren't just parents. And if I had all the data exclusively for parents, well, I think that internet use would probably be even much higher. In its 2011 research, the Pew Internet and American Life Project reported 46% of all American adult cell phone users owning a smartphone. And what's more staggering compared to the 2006 usage data is that 87% of smartphone owners access the internet or email on their handhelds, including two-thirds, 68%, that do so on a typical day. This suggests that compared to 2006, when half of adults were going online at work on their desktop computers, by 2011, about 50% of adults were carrying a little computer in their pocket and routinely using it to access the internet throughout the day. Take a look at this chart and note the changing age distribution of social networking site users between 2008 and 2010. See the dramatic shift to the older age group? And nothing can be more telling in terms of adults embracing the internet than the 2011 statistics from the American Bankers Association. A survey of more than 2,000 U.S. adults revealed that 62% of those polled named online banking as their preferred banking method. This, more than any other piece of data to me, reflects a dramatic evolution of online usage since 2006. So I think that the conversation between the generation about identity theft and data security is changing. And this is because there's a narrower gap between perception and reality on the part of parents, because both children and adults are now living much of their lives online. There is a lot at stake. We're managing our money, many of our relationships, and our reputations in cyberspace. The advantages and opportunities are real to adults now, and so are the challenges. Communications between the generations can now be more meaningful and heartfelt because there's a degree of familiarity and personal concern that didn't previously exist. Now, I'll move on to question number 2. So, what are some of the latest technology changes in the areas of identity theft and data security that will impact this conversation? You already know the basics of identity theft and data protection about phishing, and skimming, and hacking, and dumpster diving, and the importance of antivirus software, so I won't provide you with the typical overview. The fact is, the web knows a lot about us. Over the past few years, bulk scanning and online publishing of records has become a more fine-tuned and pervasive science. And there are also sophisticated fee-based services that can automatically scan the internet to locate these records. An enormous quantity of information, it's out there. Quite a number of details if you do some digging. Even though personal data is more protected in Europe, it's still challenging to maintain control over our digital footprint. Certain new technical developments further complicate the challenge to keep our identity and our data secure. I'll just name 4. Cloud-based computing, it's going mainstream. The debut of Google Cloud, among others, is a clear indication that we'll be storing more of our personal information online. Although Google and Microsoft and Apple and others claim that our data is highly secure in the cloud, it may be transmitted without encryption, and of course, the data can be accessed by anyone with the correct username and password combination. Hence, we must never back off from promoting the need for strong passwords and keeping our passwords private. Voice-based personal assistants, well, they open up a world of opportunities for identity theft. The Apple iPhone's latest Terms of Service update allows for the storage and analysis of voice commands, and voice is a biometric identifier. The level of encryption and ability to hack and hijack voice commands is a continuing topic of discussion among information security professionals. The bottom line is that interactive voice technology encourages us to speak out sensitive data, sometimes in public, which must, at the same time, be safeguarded. That's surely a challenge. All experts acknowledge the risks associated with mobile phone use. They can lead to the theft of our personal information and loss of data. Aside from issues relating to communicating over non-secure networks, the big challenge focuses on securing apps. The fact is that mobile app security is the least organized and evolved, and there is no way of telling if an app is secure. There is still no trustworthy seal program for apps, which can contain spyware and security holes. The big question is, who's responsible to secure apps? The app provider, the phone provider, the network provider, or a third-party security provider? The best advice for now is to download apps from highly reputable sources and understand the implications of location tracking and password protect your mobile phone, back up your data, and have the ability to remotely wipe out the personal information stored in your mobile phone. The fourth challenge is simply keeping up, and it's not so simple. Keeping up with various settings in your emails, social networks, and other services which enable information sharing. And being careful about allowing the distribution of information, such as birthdays, data that can be used to facilitate identity theft. The core set of tips, broadly speaking, that information security professionals communicate time and time again also apply in light of all these technology advancements, and they should be appropriately adapted and expanded upon for different age groups, audiences, and cultures. And now question number 3. How can educational materials be optimized in terms of their effectiveness? With the rapid pace of today's technology advances, it's always tough for any single resource to provide comprehensive and accurate instructions on securing identity and data. That's why we need to encourage communications between the generations to foster ongoing dialogue that encourages us to all work together to help each other to secure our digital assets. From a pedagogical perspective, this means that we need more than lists of tips and rules. We need to provide educational materials and educational approaches that build 21st century competencies. Skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, initiative taking, and decision-making, all of which are essential for achieving the objectives of sustainable development. Such skills were a focus of the European Commission Education 2020 policy framework, and they're restated similarly in the United States and globally. Meaningful communications at school and at home on these very real topics concerning our digital lives support these 21st century learning objectives, which is a direct part of Europe's strategy to instill global competitiveness into the future. At CyberSmart, starting in 2002, we introduced an extensive curriculum for students in primary school through high school. And we purposely focused on building critical thinking skills and included materials to encourage dialogue with families. Our home connections activities enabled educators to enlist parent support by providing a framework for dialogue between the generations. We're also big fans of the Stop, Think, Connect International Cybersecurity Awareness Campaign, organized by the National Cybersecurity Alliance. I think the words Stop, Think, Connect, well, they do a great job as a continuing reminder that we need to pause and think before we do anything online, because it's usually impossible to rewind what's been put into cyberspace. Working with the National Cybersecurity Alliance, CyberSmart developed a series of posters for schools or home use that are also wonderful talking points for reflection between children and adults. We're often asked, what's the easiest way to instill and maintain good security practices? The answer is surprisingly uncomplicated. Constant reminders. It's that simple. Organizations around the world whose businesses depend on good security employ this simple best practice technique. Of course, their implementation strategies vary, but they all boil down to simple, consistent reminders. That's why these posters use a technique proven worldwide to be the most effective reminder strategy, the simple checklist. Accompanying each poster is a mini activity designed specifically for teachers to use in the classroom to engage their students in critical thinking as they explore the concepts behind each of 3 checklist reminders. And these conversations can, of course, be extended to the home. CyberSmart has also recently worked with ICT Qatar in the Middle East to develop and pilot a highly innovative program that integrates internet safety and security activities and resources into everyday subject learning. We're immersed in technology. We rely on it. We're constantly online. Now, more than ever, the topics of identity theft and data protection can be more easily and meaningfully discussed between the generations because it has meaning for every generation. And our message as technology experts and educators is to encourage open and active lines of communication. Both children and adults bring tremendous value to the conversation so that we can work with each other, help each other, and thrive in our connected world. I appreciate your interest and thank you very much.